They thought she'd folded, until dinner was served in the empire she built from their dismissal. The maître d' recognized me the moment we stepped into Le Mars. His eyes widened in the briefest flicker of recognition before his professional mask reasserted itself. "Good evening," he said smoothly. "Reservation for Walker. Party of 4, Diana announced, her voice clipped and confident, the way she'd been taught to speak by a lifetime of privilege. I lingered a few steps behind them, letting my family play out their usual performance. My mother adjusted her designer scarf. My father glanced around with the entitled expectation that his name should open doors. Diana tugged her expensive coat tighter and gave a glance toward the mirror near the reception podium, checking her hair. I wore a simple black dress, tasteful, unassuming, the kind of thing you could pick up at a local boutique for under $100. Diana's eyes raked over me with a sneer that didn't quite make it to her lips. "I'm surprised you didn't wear one of your discount store specials, Sarah," she said, her voice syrupy sweet. "Some of us have different priorities than designer labels," I replied. "Yes, like barely making rent on that tiny apartment of yours," she murmured to our mother. Mom threw us both a quick glare. "Girls, please, it's your father's birthday." Dad, meanwhile, was engrossed in the wine list, grumbling about the prices under his breath. "These markups are highway robbery," he muttered. I bit back a smile. If only he knew. We were led through the lavish dining room, past elegantly dressed patrons and attentive staff, to a table with a perfect view of the city skyline. I caught the subtle glances from the servers, glances they tried to suppress, the smallest nods of acknowledgement. Diana slid into her seat with the air of royalty. "Maybe you should just get an appetizer, Sarah. You know, something affordable." I was about to reply when the waiter arrived. Tall, composed, and familiar. Jean-Luc. He smiled. "Welcome back, Miss Walker. Your usual table was reserved for another party, but I hope this one is satisfactory." Dad choked on the complimentary water. Mom's menu slipped from her fingers. Diana blinked, her lips parting in disbelief. "It's perfect, Jean-Luc," I said, returning his smile. "Thank you." "Your usual wine, Miss Walker?" he asked innocently. "Yes, please. The 1982 Bordeaux." Dad's face paled. "That bottle costs more than a month at the club," he whispered to Mom. "Sarah," Mom said, her voice a bit shaky. "What is going on?" I took a sip of water and leaned back. "Oh, didn't I mention? I bought Lumar 6 months ago, along with the entire restaurant group." Diana's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "But you live in that tiny apartment. You shop at normal stores," she stammered. "Because I choose to," I said. "I don't measure success by what I wear or where I live." Jean-Luc returned, with the wine, presenting it with a practiced flourish. "An excellent choice, as always, Miss Walker. Shall I have Chef Michel prepare your favorite soufflé for dessert?" "That would be lovely," I said. "And please bring us the full tasting menu. It's a special occasion, after all." As Jean-Luc walked away, the table fell into stunned silence. It was the kind of silence that only comes when people realize they've spent the last hour mocking the owner of the establishment they're sitting in. My phone buzzed. Another update from the London location. I ignored it. Right now, I want to enjoy this moment. Dinner was going to be very interesting. As each course arrived, exquisite, perfectly plated, delicately balanced, I could feel the tension at the table, rising. The first course was a delicate amuse-bouche with a saffron foam. Then came the carpaccio, the duck confit, the truffle risotto, the scallops. Chef Michel was showing off. For me, and my family knew it. Dad finally broke the silence. "So, how exactly did this happen?" he asked, voice tight. I sipped my wine, letting the silence stretch a beat too long. "Remember that MBA program I applied to? The one you refused to pay for because you said restaurant management was a waste of money?" He shifted in his seat. "Yes. Well," he began. "I focused on optimizing high-end restaurant operations," I continued gently. "Turns out there was a market for it. Mom dropped her fork. You own 32 restaurants? Across 3 continents, including Le Cirque in New York, Le Mignone in Paris, and that little place in London where you celebrated your anniversary. Last year. Diana turned beet red. That's why they seated us so quickly when I said Walker? Indeed, I said. Though you really should be nicer to the staff. They tell me everything. Jean-Luc returned with the next course. Chef's newest creation, he said, placing the plate before me. He'd like your opinion before adding it to the permanent menu. I tasted the scallops and gave a small nod. Excellent. The rosemary oil is a nice touch. Dad was visibly calculating the value of my business empire. The same man who once told me I was wasting my potential on restaurants instead of joining his investment firm. I let him stew. The London location opens next month, I said, cutting into a slice of aged beef tenderloin. We're booked. Solid for the first 3 months. Mom's voice cracked. But last summer you said you couldn't afford to come to London. I was there, I said simply. Overseeing construction. I stayed in my penthouse, not the family hotel. Diana's phone buzzed. She glanced down, eyes widening. No doubt a society friend had spotted us and sent the message. Sarah Walker owns Le Mars. That's why you never moved to a bigger place? She asked, her voice small. Why have you never bought designer clothes? I prefer to invest in things that matter, I said. Like paying my staff the highest wages in the industry, providing healthcare and education benefits, creating something meaningful. A sommelier approached. Ms. Walker, that investment group is here again. They're requesting another meeting. Which group? Mom asked. Morgan Stanley, I replied. They offered 12 times earnings last week. Dad nearly dropped his glass. Tell them what you always tell them, Philippe, I said. Not for sale at any price, he replied with a bow. Mom leaned forward. Darling, why didn't you tell us? We've been so worried about you. Because success isn't about showing off, Mom. It's about building something real. I built this on my own. No family money, no connections. Diana's face was changing, calculating. So about reservations, she began. Still need to be made in advance, I cut her off. And your name doesn't guarantee special treatment anymore. The dessert cart arrived, Chef Michel's legendary soufflé. A vintage port to match. Happy birthday, Dad, I said, raising my glass. Dinner's on me, as it's been every time you've dined in one of my restaurants for the past year. And with that, the balance of power at the table had shifted forever. The kitchen hummed with a rhythm Sarah Walker knew by heart. The clang of pans, the hiss of butter on hot skillets, the muted conversations of focused chefs. It all grounded her, reminded her that success wasn't just served in fine crystal but forged in fire, sweat, and passion. Chef Michel moved like a conductor, directing the dinner rush with graceful precision. She glanced up as Sarah entered and smiled. They're still out there, aren't they? Michelle asked, wiping her hands on her apron. Sarah nodded, leaning against the stainless steel countertop. Still stunned, still calculating, still trying to figure out how the family embarrassment became the one they should have supported. Michelle arched a brow. You sure you want to go back out there? Could always stay here and plate desserts. Tempting, Sarah said, laughing softly. But no, I need to ride this out. She picked up a tasting spoon and dipped it into Michelle's. Sauce reduction. The depth of flavor was exquisite. Notes of plum, star anise, and something smoky she couldn't quite place. Wood-fired cherry barrels, Michelle said, watching her expression. We're infusing the new London menu with bolder elements. Thought you'd approve, Sarah nodded. It's brilliant. Pair it with the black garlic risotto and you've got a showstopper. Michelle's grin widened. Already ahead of you. A quiet knock interrupted them. Jean-Luc stepped in, discreet as always. Ms. Walker, he said, your family insists they must speak with you. They've finished dinner. Sarah sighed, setting down the spoon. Of course, let's not keep them waiting. Back in the private dining area, the energy had shifted. Her mother clutched a linen napkin like it was a lifeline. Diana looked like she'd aged 5 years in an hour. Her father, usually so confident, avoided eye contact. Sarah sat down slowly, smoothing her simple black dress. "So, we owe you an apology," her mother began, voice trembling. "All these years, we thought you were failing." "You never asked," Sarah replied, her tone neutral. "You assumed." "That MBA, we didn't think it was worth it," her father said, "because it wasn't at your firm." "Because I didn't want to chase your dream," she countered. Diana cleared her throat. I don't know what to say. You own Lumars, the entire group, and here I was, worried you couldn't afford an appetizer." Sarah's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Appearances, remember? I never needed your concern, just your respect." There was a long silence. Finally, her father leaned forward. "Let's talk. Talk. How did you build this?" Sarah hesitated. This was the moment. The fork in the road. She could walk away, vindicated, or she could tell them the story they never cared to ask about. "Fine," she said, voice quiet. "But you listen. You don't interrupt." They nodded, and so she began. After they cut her off for refusing to follow the corporate path, Sarah had taken a job as a hostess at a struggling bistro in Brooklyn. She worked double shifts, took night classes, and invested every tip into learning the intricacies of restaurant management. She learned inventory systems, payroll logistics, marketing tactics, and most importantly, people. "People are the heart of hospitality," she told them. "If you treat them like machines, your business, dies." She saved enough to buy into a floundering gastropub, turned it around in 6 months, sold it, used the profits to purchase Lumars, which was close to bankruptcy but had a strong brand name. "I didn't just buy a restaurant," Sarah said. "I bought a legacy and rebuilt it." They listened, genuinely now. Even Diana, though her eyes occasionally flickered to her phone. "And the empire?" her father asked. "Systems," she said. "Streamlined operations, data-driven wine pairings, AI-backed reservation algorithms. Then I reinvested everything, never lived big, always thought long-term." Diana frowned. "But the apartment? The clothes?" Sarah shrugged. "Aesthetic choices, minimalist living. I didn't need luxury to validate myself." Her mother dabbed her eyes. "We were wrong. About everything." Sarah didn't respond. Some wounds were too deep for a single dinner to heal. Later that night, after they had left, each wearing an expression of quiet disbelief, Sarah walked the quiet corridors of Lumars. The staff was winding down. Jean-Luc handed her a note. From the sommelier. The Morgan Stanley Group called again. New offer, substantial. Sarah scanned the figures and smiled. Still not for sale. She returned to her office upstairs. On the desk sat an envelope, gold embossed, a gala invitation, culinary. Innovator of the Year, she'd been nominated. She ran her fingers across the embossed paper, from hostess to mogul, from cast-off daughter to industry disruptor. The door creaked open slightly. Michelle peeked in. "One more thing," she said. "The sous chef from the Tokyo branch just landed, wants to sync with you before morning. And someone is waiting in the lobby, said he's a food critic from the Times." Sarah chuckled. "I'll be right there." In the elevator, she took a deep breath. The night wasn't over, but the chapter was turning. She'd built this world from scratch, and now the people who doubted her were spectators to her empire. Downstairs, the critic stood by the door, holding a notebook. But he wasn't a stranger. "Ben?" she said, eyes widening. He smiled. Same boyish grin. Her college flame, the one who had loved her passion but feared her ambition, the one who had walked away when her hours grew too long. "Heard you made it big," he said. "Wanted to see for myself." Sarah raised a brow. "Curiosity or regret?" "Both," he admitted. "But mostly admiration." "You're late," she said, brushing past him. "Dinner service is over." "Then maybe breakfast?" he asked. She turned, considered him. "Maybe," she said. "But only if you make a reservation. 3 months out. No exceptions." And with that, she vanished into the kitchen. The New York sky was an indigo canvas dusted with stars when Sarah stood on the balcony of her penthouse. Below, the pulse of the city thrummed like a second heartbeat. Inside, her phone buzzed constantly. Notifications from Forbes, The Wall Street Journal, and Bon Appetit. The news was everywhere. Sarah Walker named Culinary Innovator of the Year. She turned the phone over, letting it fall silently onto a velvet ottoman. The quiet night was her true reward. Not the press, not the admiration. Just this stillness, earned through years of chaos. Yet, beneath the calm, something gnawed at her, a restlessness. The next morning, she arrived at Le Mars before sunrise. The restaurant felt different now, more museum than battlefield. Every fixture, every tile, was a part of her story. And yet, she sensed a transition looming. Michelle met her in the kitchen, already tying her apron. "You're here early," she said. Sarah shrugged. "Old habits." Michelle's eyes searched hers. "You're restless. What's next?" Sarah exhaled slowly. "Expansion, but not just restaurants. I want to build something bigger. A global culinary institute, scholarships, mentorships for women in hospitality. I'm tired of just proving myself. Now I want to elevate others." Michelle grinned. "That sounds like you. Impossible goals with miraculous outcomes." That week, Sarah flew to London for the gala. The ballroom glittered with power and ego. Celebrity chefs, venture capitalists, and food critics with too much influence. When they announced her name, the applause thundered like a tidal wave. She stood at the podium, gripping the Lucite Award. "When I started in this industry, I wasn't welcome at the table. So I built my own. Tonight, I want every underestimated girl in the world to know there is no door you cannot break down." The room went silent, then erupted into applause. Backstage, her father was waiting. "You made the speech of the century," he said quietly. She nodded. "And you missed 20 years of knowing the person who could make it." He looked down, ashamed. "Is there a way back?" Sarah tilted her head. "There's a way forward, but it's not the same." He nodded, swallowing the pain. Back in New York, a letter awaited her from Diana Walker. Subject, investment proposal. Sarah stared at the sleek pitch deck attached. Diana wanted to launch a high-end wellness retreat, nutrition, spa, meditation, and elite culinary experiences. She wanted Sarah's backing. The old Sarah would have deleted it, but the woman she'd become saw something else, a bridge. She replied with 3 words. Lunch took place in the sunlit garden terrace of Le Mars's newly renovated rooftop lounge. Sarah arrived late on purpose. Diana was already seated, tense, scrolling through analytics. "Still impatient?" Sarah said as she sat down. "Still dramatic," Diana replied, then paused. "Thanks for coming," Sarah glanced at the menu. "You're serious about the project." I am. "I'm tired of riding coattails and pretending to be someone I'm not. I want to create something of my own." Sarah considered her. "Then I'll mentor you. But you work. No shortcuts, no handouts. You earn it." Diana swallowed. "Deal." Weeks later, Sarah stood at the grand opening of the Walker Culinary Institute, a sleek glass building nestled in Brooklyn. Students filled the modern halls, hungry to learn. A donor gala was underway, and this time it wasn't about power suits or billionaires. It was about stories. On stage, Sarah told hers once more, but with new eyes. Less bitterness, more grace. Afterward, as the crowd dispersed, a young woman approached. "You don't know me," she said nervously. "But I was the girl in your story. Dropped from my scholarship. Working nights at a diner, I applied to your program." Sarah smiled. "And?" "I got in." She hugged her. "Then don't waste it." That night, Sarah returned to Le Mars, where Michelle waited with wine. "Full circle?" Michelle asked. Sarah nodded. "Almost." Ben walked in moments later, carrying a small takeout bag and a sheepish grin. "You left this at the rooftop lounge," he said. Sarah raised a brow. "My planner?" "No, your future." He opened the bag. Inside was a miniature model of the original Le Mars, a gift he'd commissioned. On the bottom was engraved, "Where it all began, and where you began everything. She laughed, touched. Trying to charm me, Mr. Food Critic? Just applying for a second chance. I've already booked dinner, 3 months out. Sarah looked around. The polished silver, the scent of truffle oil, the quiet legacy of every hard-earned moment. Then she looked at him. Dinner's on me, she said, but you're washing dishes after. In a quiet corner of the Institute, a bronze plaque reads, "This table is reserved for the dreamers who were told they didn't belong. Eat well, dream big, change everything." Sarah Walker, and so, the woman who once begged for a reservation carved her name into an empire, not to dine alone at the top, but to make room for the next generation at the table.